I was about to get fired from my job, and because I was just going too fast, and everybody's been telling me my whole life I need to slow down. I just didn't think they knew what they were talking about. Um, and so I went to my primary care because I was scared, and I was finally listening. And I was like, "Look, I can't slow down. I think I'm about to lose my job. I don't know what to do. I need some help. Can you please help me?"
Are you going through life blind? This is Eyes Wide Open with Nick Thompson. On this podcast, we share knowledge and stories that build human connection while elevating stigmatized societal issues such as mental health, holistic wellness, culture, free speech, and more. All to ensure we show up in the world with our eyes wide open. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Eyes Wide Open. Our guest today is Ron Souers, aka your ADHD guy. Ron is a mental health and ADHD advocate. He's host of a podcast called Don't Mind Me, I Just Have ADHD. Don't Mind Me, I Just Have ADHD. And he's the author of the Self-Discovery Journal for Adults with ADHD. He also works as a coach for men over 40 with ADHD, addiction, and depression, helping them become more social to unlock their full potential. And also an advocate of fierce kindness, which we're going to dive into what that means to Ron. Ron, thanks for coming on the show. How are you today?
Yeah, Nick, thank you for inviting me on. I'm flattered and honored to share this space with you.
I am excited and honored to have you here. So thanks for making the time. Before we dive into your work, your life experience, and some of the wonderful things that you're doing to advocate for, especially men and late ADHD folks, I like to ask all my guests the same question to start. What did you want to be when you were a little kid, and how did that change to lead you to where you are today?
Yeah, let's see if I can remember. I think it was I wanted to be an astronaut when I was a little boy, and it was interesting because like one of the jobs that I had was like this sales rep for this charity, and like I it was a good day. I just got like promoted in that position, and I was really proud. And like there was actually a bunch of like dudes dressed up like astronauts walking up, and I was like, dude, I got to take your picture because this is like a dream day. um yeah, I don't know if that really inspired me a lot, because then I saw that movie, The Right Stuff or something like that, and I was like, man, that is not something I want to do to become an astronaut. Like what they had to go through, and God bless those astronauts that went through that training. And it would be an awesome thing to be able to do that. But I feel if there's like a connection, it's like I am reaching for the stars. Like I'm reaching for my dreams, um in a way that like embodies, I guess. Like I'd like to think that the kid version of me would see me now and not necessarily, you know, like connect with where I'm going, but like respect who I've become, and like really look up to the character that I've been able to, somewhat develop at this point.
Yeah. So the reason I like asking that question actually is because usually it starts with something extravagant, right? Like I'm going to be an astronaut, I'm going to fly to the moon, I'm going to go to Mars in your case, whatever was driving that.
Yeah.
But there's always seems to be some sort of tie, at least at like an ethos perspective, where, like you're saying, like it may not have the kid may not understand this, but they'd respect kind of like where it's coming from, right? Like
Yeah.
what's driving you to do it. And I think that's what's so important and fun to make with that connection. And for me, it's been storytelling. Like I wanted to be a professional wrestler, a film director, all of these different, a journalist at one point, a writer, which I think everybody at some
Yeah.
point thinks about that. And then, you get kind of shoved into capitalism in a way. But I am a marketing professional. And what do? I
Okay.
focus on stories, right? So that's that's the tie for me. And I always like to find that with other people. So I think that's really cool. What was it about astronauts, if you remember? Did you want to like go to the moon, or was it, further space exploration?
I don't know. Maybe it's just I just wanted to leave like where I was at, and just because like my ADHD but it wasn't like the only thing that was my dream. Like I definitely developed into like, I think at one point I wanted to be Batman or some, a vigilante. I definitely wanted to have a bat cave. I am, if you can't tell, I'm a
Relatable.
huge Batman fan. Like, but then I like started getting into like, I did rapping for a little while. Like, I do have some songs that I don't know. I'm still toying with, like, if I really want to
That's cool.
introduce that to the world on a larger scale, or is it really aligning with what I'm doing now? And I also definitely wanted to become a film director and have
Mm.
written some books, about that haven't been published yet. But yeah, I can definitely relate to like all where you were. I feel like writing and being a novelist is like one of the coolest professions, ever, because it's like you don't have to be in the spotlight, and it's like you seem like you're smarter than you actually are, or you know.
So true. So true. I know a couple, and some of the nonfiction ones I know are actually really smart. The fiction ones, it's not that they're not smart, but there is a little aura about them, I would say.
Yeah.
Well, what's interesting, so I want to poke a little, if you don't mind, at the raps, your rap tracks. Why is the only reason you're holding back because you don't think it's like on brand for you right now?
Yeah, and it's always been that way, because like I don't know, if you saw Eminem like as a coach, like he's a great rapper, and I'm sure he
Mm-hmm.
would probably be a great coach if he wanted to be, but like there's this stigma to like, I don't know if I can like really be brutally honest or authentic with this guy right off the bat, or at least even get to the point of like trusting him to that point. um and if you want proof that I can rap, here's one of my
I wanted
lyrics.
to
I don't
ask
normally
so
do.
bad.
I don't think I even recorded it. It's like it was throw a log on the fire and retire like Jay-Z did. I'm sorry, kid, but it was the best thing to happen to raps. It's big.
That's good
Not that I
stuff.
hate Jay-Z. Don't come after me, Jay-Z.
No.
I'm not ready for that. But
I
I
don't think people
definitely
that
like,
listen here to this podcast are into cancel culture, but I could be wrong.
yeah. Who knows? That might
So,
be the thing that launches my career.
well, the reason I wanted to poke at that is because I feel like I have a little bit of experience with the, because I was on reality show. That's where I got my following. And I'm sure a lot of the podcast listeners now at this point, because I'm at 3 years,
That's awesome.
have organically grown. But initially it was my 15 minutes from reality TV that sort of gave me a bit of a platform, and there was pressure every which way to like be a brand. And that was from my publicists, from the show, from
Hmm.
people in my life even. And it's like, well, I'm not a brand, I'm a human, and I'm a very nuanced human. And
Yeah.
so I love to come on this show and talk to people about mental health, and talk to you about all the work you're doing with ADHD and your personal journey, and your challenges and how you overcome them, and what you're working to do with sort of your mission. But then at the same time, I'll have a politician on here and I'll argue with them and debate with them. Why? Because this is who I am as a human being, and I'm nuanced, and we're all nuanced. And
Yeah.
so the people that wanted, and I get it a lot, not as much anymore, but I used to get stay in your lane reality star in the comments, in the messages.
Hmm.
And it's like, well, just because I was on reality TV doesn't mean that I don't have like a human side and an entire,
Yeah.
at this point, 40 years of life experience on this earth and things that I care about. And so,
Yeah.
the reason I tell you that story is because I would encourage you to focus on Ron Souers, the human being, for authenticity. And if that means dropping a rap track somewhere or on YouTube, do it, because the people that are coming to you, they should see who you are, not this fake, not that it's fake, but like this persona. And
Yeah.
then you never leave that persona, because that becomes inauthentic, and then you just become like a ADHD influencer. You know what I mean? So that's just
Yeah.
my advice. Take it or leave it. But I would encourage you to just be yourself, man. People like that more in the long run, and the nuance is what makes you human.
No, I really appreciate that, and that comes with the second part. Is like I listen to music, and like you hear like Korn talking about going down that spiral, and I think of the shames, and it's like I connected to that when I didn't have help, when I didn't know I had ADHD. So it was like there is a connection that you can have through music. So it's always been this battle of like which one should I, should I just be the professional guy and like put that to the side? And, that was fun. That's a good hobby. I know I'm talented to a degree, but do it, and there's also like, there's so many logistics about it with like, if I want to go on tour, like I'm gonna have to, I don't want to be one of those lip syncers. Like I've got to, I've got to memorize my own lyrics, which are very nuanced and complex, which I'm working on making less because I understand like that's going to be harder to do. But still, I have ADHD, so I'm like, I don't want to be in the middle of a track instead of 10,000 or two people that are like
totally. Well, you can chunk it up and do it one step at a time. But also, isn't it a little on brand that you would go do something like rapping because you have ADHD?
Yeah,
and
I think
got
like
all these
people like
different interests.
Eminem definitely like I can feel an ADHD vibe from the way that if you've seen the movie Stands, like
Oh yeah,
he's like the way that he writes is almost really close to the way that I write. Like I'll write out like on like down the page, like I'll be writing up here and then down the page. I'm like, okay, this is gonna go here because I don't have that rap yet in my head, like, and then it'll line right up. It's so strange, and that's why I feel like podcasting was kind of like a really good fit because like I'm already like in the microphone, but it wasn't as like smooth of a transition as I thought it would be because it was like, man, I could just speak and then I'm like, don't like what it says, and, and then I got to re-record it. Especially the first time, it was so much harder than I thought it was going to be.
The podcast, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I know we talked a little bit about your podcast, and I want to, why not step into that now? But podcasting is hard. People think it's easy, and people think you start a podcast and all of a sudden you're rich. Like there's like 1% of podcasters, I would say, make, a living off of their podcast.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of work. I spend, I produce this myself now. So, just as an example, I sometimes do solo episodes. I know you sometimes do solo episodes. Those take almost as much, probably more time to prep than when you're interviewing a guest. So, it's an hour or two of prep, an hour of recording, an hour or two of editing and posting and clipping and all that stuff. And then at the end of the month, you make, very little money for your investment. So, but before we kind of dive into why you started the podcast, because I do want to get to that, but I want to learn about your life before and after your ADHD diagnosis and how you got diagnosed, because you got diagnosed later in life, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So can you walk us through what that was like before, how you ended up getting your diagnosis, and how that's changed your life now?
Yeah, I just don't remember any of that. Just kidding. Sorry, my sarcasm is really bad.
I picked up on it. I have very, very dark sarcasm. So
yeah. So like it all, like my journey really started with me admitting that I was an addict, and that was difficult. There was a long time where I just thought, like I was just smoking weed a lot, and I didn't see that as a big problem. I felt like that helped with my creativity, and they didn't understand, and but it just continued to spiral down and get worse, and it was like when the breaking point or the real point where I realized like I needed help, and I just gave up. I surrendered. Was when I ended up homeless for the second time.
Jesus.
With a job on the National Mall in Washington D.C. Like it was just, the fun was over. I knew I needed help, and I just didn't know where I was going to get it from. But it was so freeing to be. I told my boss at the time that I was going into treatment, and yeah, it was.
And that
There
was
was like
was that for weed?
it was for drugs, but
Okay.
I guess you could say my main drug of choice was always weed. And you're talking to a guy that just didn't think that he could ever go a day without craving or smoking marijuana.
Mm.
And, I just thought it was completely normal. And, now it's been almost 6 years since
Congratulations.
yeah, thank you. And, it wasn't, if I didn't get into recovery and have that process, like, I don't want to know what would happen. I don't think I would still be alive. I definitely wouldn't be here with you on this call. But yeah, it just started to open up the doors to see that drugs wasn't my real issue. It was just a symptom of a lot of the trauma that I was going through and that I didn't realize was trauma, and and the insanity and the emotional it was more the internal unmanageability that started, that nobody can see, especially when you're not looking at yourself as like needing to be fixed. That's
Right.
such a huge point. So that's why, like, you can't always tell the willingness of somebody that walks into these rooms. And I was fortunate that it happened for me, but I just kept coming back. And when I kept coming back, like, that's when I discovered that I had ADHD as well, because there's this saying that goes through the rooms that says, if some are sicker than others, and that
Mm-hmm.
just means, doesn't mean that some are just really bad addicts and they they go harder. It means that some of them, like me, have more than just addiction. We have ADHD or OCD or depression or whatever that looks like
Well, and they
for
can all
you.
feed each other too,
Oh
which
yeah,
is
you
yeah.
cannot look at one without the other. But I've had to go through the experience of doing that to understand that.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like I was about to get fired from my job, and because I was just going too fast, and everybody's been telling me my whole life I need to slow down. I just didn't think they knew what they were talking about. Um, and so I went to my primary care because I was scared, and I was finally listening. And I was like, "Look, I can't slow down. I think I'm about to lose my job. I don't know what to do. I need some help. Can you please help me?" And she was like,
What was your job at the time?
"Well, yeah, it's actually the job I still have. And
Oh, okay.
I work at Ecolab. It's a chemical processing company.
Yeah, I've heard of them. Yeah.
Yeah, so it was like I was working around dangerous chemicals going fast. Like, it was just wasn't like, and I'm like completely oblivious. So I was like, maybe I have ADHD. And she was like, maybe, I don't know. Like, here's a list of doctors and therapist and psychologist. And I was like, okay. So I was like just going down that list as fast as I could. I was like, I need the help yesterday. And finally I was able to I couldn't wait to meet up, because I was like, I wanted to be fixed. I
Yeah.
did everything that but one of the first things that made an impact was, like, he said that this can be used as a strength. And I was like, like, I don't know how that's going to work. But I'm
Yeah.
kind of, I'm you've got me curious a little bit. So, and one of the first things that he definitely suggested that I do is that I drive like I'm taking the long way to work. And so actually took that a step further and literally took the long way to work. So I went, I would like took the back roads, and I actually started liking taking the back roads. I'd leave earlier, and it was like a chance to like meditate and, you know, um, really get connected and slow down. And, but it really just seemed like an impossible amount, because there would be times at work where I just couldn't slow down still. And I almost got, and I ended up, feeling like I had gotten better and gotten signed off by my therapist. And um, what ended up happening with that was like, about, I would say 9 months later, I got a new position, which I was driving a Ford truck, and I ended up like crashing into a reinforcement pole, taking that out, and taking out
Jeez.
drums, and yeah, I don't know why, but I got to the point where I was about to get fired again, and I went back before that point. So I was already like working on a plan to slow down, and even asking him maybe I need medication because like I can't, like there's just urges, like I get distracted. So finally, the straw that broke the camel's back was like I was lowering the forks, and it took out this guardrail that was near these pipes. Luckily, it just did that. And I was just so stressed out from that position, from the fear of getting fired, that I was just like, I stepped down from that role. And it was the best decision that I've made in my life, because it started to make me realize like that this is something that's not fixable. It's just a part of who I am, and I've got to learn that there's certain boundaries and certain limitations that I need to put in my life. So I started to really, kind of look into like other sources to make money of income, like more passive income. And that's when I stumbled upon like podcasting, because that was something in the back of my head that I really wanted to do. And mental health was starting to come, like, I was already pretty passionate about it, but it started to really, really grow.
Yeah.
And the stuff that I've learned through my journey along this path is like something that I wanted to start to share to others and give them because it's all out there. It's just so scattered, and you really
Yeah.
got to dig to find it. And I'm still learning stuff today.
What I find very important about your journey to this point is very relatable, I think, to a lot of people out there. And that is the pressure cooker of life and the release valve of a diagnosis. But a
Yeah,
diagnosis, and I've had, mental health psychologists, neurologists, neuroscientists, everybody on the show. The thing is, they all kind of say the same thing about this. Like, the diagnosis is a starting point, it's not the end point.
yeah,
And I remember, so I battle depression every single day of my life since I was 5 or 6 is when I
yeah,
remember the symptoms. I didn't know at the time, but now I look back, I'm like, oh yeah, there it is. And so, for me, I remember being diagnosed at like 21, and I was like, I don't need therapy anymore. I'm fine. I'll be fine. Like, I know this now. And
yeah,
that's like not the case. That's like, that's the starting point. And it sounds to me, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but it sounds to me like you got that initial sort of diagnosis and you got some tools in place. And then, 8, 9 months later, you found yourself back sort of at your starting point because you hadn't learned yet that you have to do the work every single day to
yeah,
maintain that sort of that new baseline that you want to have. So that's where the diagnosis starts, and then the work starts, right? And so,
mm,
similar to you, like, I have learned to deal and live with and have my depression, which is a lot of empathy, a lot of
yeah,
um it's a lot of loneliness, but then how do you turn that into a strength? And like, these are things I work on all the time, but it's that moment when you kind of like, okay, I have to figure out how this helps me and not even look at it as some diagnosis, right? Like, or
yeah,
some handicap of some sort, and learn to live with it, but also learn to benefit from it. And so I love that you, and correct me if I'm wrong, but like, that's kind of what I took out of your journey there, is that diagnosis needs to be the starting point, and now you've got to do the work every single day to make sure that you can maintain this new baseline of sort of a stability.
Yeah, definitely. It's not like I do the work every day. Like there's days where, I miss out and like, but it's those days that reinforce because I built the foundation.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but like any foundation, if you don't take care of it, it's going to erode and you're
Yeah.
going to have to start over again. So I understand. And plus the fact that I coach is like, I want to come from a level of an example. Like I don't want to tell you something that I wouldn't do, or I
Yeah.
don't want to tell you something like and make it seem like I do it perfect. So it's like when you do that, it creates such a gap between the student or whatever you want to call it and the teacher.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's like it just seems like he's perfect. He's like he does everything right. He's saying all the right things, and we come from that mindset of like the deficit of like what we're not doing, what we need, like what we don't have, and what another person has that we're not doing. Instead of looking at like what we've done. Even if it's not
Mm-hmm.
as good as what I'm doing, it's like I like to notice what people are doing that are the small things that they weren't doing before, because I
Mm-hmm.
understand how significant the small things are over the larger things, because those things are the things that you build off of. The big
Yeah.
things like are great, and you need to deal with those things, but it's the little things that help you prepare for those things, like building off of just just things that don't even feel like they're even building, like they're not
Mm-hmm.
even there, but they are
Yeah.
there, they're in the background. And this is something that I've taken, and I've heard, it's like how bamboo grows, and bamboo takes so long to grow, and you don't see it growing, and it could be a year or two before it finally starts growing, and it will grow so quick and so tall because
Yep.
it's got to grow the roots to support it. So it's like that when you're building the better it is, the more long term. And that's why those dreams are important, and looking at your depression, like and thank you for sharing that. Like
Mm-hmm.
you got to explore where these things are coming from, because they're coming from a good place. And when you live in this world with ADHD or depression or whatever neurodivergency, you are automatically resilient, because it takes that to just live a normal,
Live life.
just to
Yep.
keep your head above water. So I applaud you for even being here. So it's like when you explore those things and understand like where it's coming from, you can start to like, live your dreams, like who you really are supposed to be. Like I
Yeah.
feel like what God created you to do. So it's like those things need to be explored, because they're telling you
Mm-hmm.
something. And the world has been telling you your whole life, like, you need to stop doing that. You can't be this. You can't feel sad. You can't feel angry, especially as a guy. Like, and when you can't
Ugh.
talk about those things, it creates that pressure cooker. It creates
Yeah.
this situation that's not really there, that people don't know how to like react when you do blow up. So that's
Yeah.
why I teach that communication, because it's so important to be able to advocate for yourself, to be able to talk about these emotions, to be able to communicate, because it just helps everything. But you got to be
Mm-hmm.
able to do it in a way that is healthy and productive.
I could not have said that better myself. I think you're spot on, especially as men. And this is something I grew up in a Midwest family, working class, and it was, if you're crying, you better stop, or I'm going to give you something to cry about.
Yeah,
Like, don't, I don't know if this was ever said to me, but like, don't be a girl or a crybaby, stuff like that. And
yeah,
I was a sensitive kid myself. Again, it's the
me too.
empathy chip. I would feel things that I didn't even know why I was feeling them, or what was causing them, and it just tie up your emotions, and then you're not allowed to express them. And I was a very I still get very irritated very easily, and then I'm like reverting back to 25-year-old who's ready to explode over
Yeah.
anything and everything. And, it's very difficult. And I think what's important about what you do with your coaching and what you do with your podcast and even your journal that you authored and all the speaking and all of that is that it's at its core, it's encouraging, men to feel emotions and express emotions where typically it's stoic, classically, I should say it's stoic or it's anger. And those were the accepted emotions for men.
Yeah. No, and even men that, do express their emotions more, like especially when it comes to roles like being a parent. It's like, oh, I've got to be tough. I've got to let things roll off my shoulders. And that's it's coming from a good place. But it's really damaging, because not only are you not able to tell them what's really going on, that you're scared, or you're sad about something. Like the kid takes that as an example, and it's going to continue to roll on,
It's
and
generational trauma.
yeah. And when you could just be vulnerable, and it may be weird in the beginning, but it's like wow, that's like coming from that to have that it takes strength to be vulnerable. And you talked about being sensitive. I believe that every neurodivergent is their baseline is just we're highly sensitive people. I'm highly sensitive. I tried to get rid of that because I thought it was, a weakness. I didn't think that it had any use. But it actually, when you can tap into that sensitivity, you have deeper empathy. You have you you are more passionate about about justice and standing up for what's right, which we need more of in this world.
Yeah.
And all these other amazing gifts that you have to offer, because you can feel the other person's emotions. So when you bring that into, especially a romantic relationship, like, I believe a lot of these problems and these divorces could go down if they just were willing to open up those communications and just be a little more
Yeah.
vulnerable, and just work on that, saying, look, I know you said this, I I believe that you didn't mean to hurt me when you said it, but like, it made me really sad, or like, and I just wanted to let you know that, because like I feel like we could have a better relationship if you worked on that with me. I'm not saying that you
I
should never do that again, but I just want to let you know how that landed with me. And when you open up in that way, I've seen it so many times in my life, especially just like, because you can open up the doorway to not necessarily call people out, but to bring things to their attention that they may have not seen, a way to do that, and they get better. They may do it in their own way, but it creates that boundary, and we need those boundaries.
I want to comment on two specific things you said that I think are super key there. One is, you said, I know your intention wasn't to hurt me. The
Yeah.
greatest learning of my life, even more so than learning to accept and turn my superpower, my depression, into my superpower. Understanding and accepting people's intention versus what crap comes out of their mouth, for lack of a
Yes.
better word, can be the greatest gift you ever understand. Because if someone's intentions are good and their communication is poor, their actions are poor,
Yeah.
if you can, it's not to say it can't hurt you, because it can, and it will. But like, if their intention isn't there to do that, that person, you might be able to see through the actions, right, or the comments. And
Yeah.
I've tried so hard to help others recognize that, professionally, personally, in my own relationships. And I feel like
It's
if you
awesome.
can recognize intention, you can open up doors to communication. But that person has to also understand and be willing to listen to that, right, and
Yeah.
not be hurtful on purpose or anything like that. So there's more to it, but understanding people's intention is huge, and it can really change the way that you communicate and have relationships. The other thing about that is if someone's intention is not good, that person's out. That person doesn't belong in your circle. If someone doesn't have good intentions, you don't need them, because the intention, the core, is rotten. The rest is never going to be what you need it to be. So you've got to be able to kind of put a boundary and get those people out of your circle. The other thing that you said that I think is really good, and it applies to, as you said, like especially with your partner, but I just had my 3rd year anniversary podcast episode a few weeks ago. It was a solo episode. And I talked about, thank you. I talked about the things that I've learned. And one of the things that I've learned is that we need to talk less and listen more. And I think that this applies to obviously relationships, friendships, family relationships, all that stuff. But this applies to everyone. Like if we could listen to someone who disagrees with us, if we could listen to someone who has a different point of view and listen to understand, not listen to respond, I think we would find we have a lot more in common than we think, because everything's polarizing. Everything's polarizing. There's nothing, you can find a source to support anything, right? You can find, with the way the internet is, the way influencers are, the way the news is, you can find a source to support anything that you want to believe, and then give these like, reinforcements through algorithms and whatever, content you listen to and all of that stuff. But if we listen more to other people, we will build a better connection with them organically. But you've got to be able to listen to understand. And people don't really have that skill set. And I feel like with social media and algorithms and just the whole digital world, it's created this ecosystem of echo chambers and polarization, when really we all really want the same things. We just want to live our lives and have some peace and have some fun and relax. That's it. Like you talk to anyone, you get the core, like, no, but very few people are like deliberately wanting to hurt one another or villainize people. But like, you got to be able to like kind of open your mind to listen to people to get past that polarization and those stigmas. And that goes with everything.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And the thing about listening, like, I feel like there's a strength there. I feel like it's the hidden master strength in a way, or at least for me, is curiosity, like that genuine childlike curiosity. Why do you think that? Or I'm curious as to like what I can learn from somebody else's opinion. Cause like when you're listening or hearing somebody and you want to prove them wrong, all you're listening for is an opportunity to prove them wrong. Like you're not actually hearing what they have to say. You're not, and trust me, I've been in that position too. So it's like,
oh, me too.
Because like I've done all the work on myself and I know where my, what I've got to look out for. I can see it in other people when they do it. And I bring that back to myself too. Like you said, keep them out of your inner circle. But I also hold out hope for them and pray for them, because like I know if they didn't hold out hope for me, I wouldn't be here. Like I needed people that believed in me when I was that person, when I showed up in that way. And it took me a long time to get to where I'm at, like mentally, and being able to see people as fellow human beings that just want to be happy. They want to be free from pain, and they just don't know the best way to do that. A lot of them are chasing these things that the system is telling them they need. It's programmed in them, and that programming is working, is doing its job. But your job as a person is to really take all the evidence that's around you so that you can make an informed decision moving forward. And there's a lot of evidence out there about, especially finances, that most people are going to be broke or close to it the rest of their lives, because they're not, willing to look at, and learn about that aspect of it, which is important, because you're giving away Most people are giving away their time for only a little bit of the money. And it's time
Mm-hmm.
is so much worth so much more than money. That's why I'm trying to do what I'm doing is to get all that time back. Like I want to create a business that supports my family going on down the line. It's not just because I love money. I love what money does. Like
Yeah.
money can do things. Lots and lots of money can make change. Yeah, it's good to stand up and support what you're doing, and speak up about it. And I always encourage that. But until you have like the money and the resources to get on the platforms that you need to do that, like it's never going to go as far as it needs to go.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think with money too, like we're just the whole capitalistic scape we live in. I would say hellscape if it was if I knew you a little better maybe, but the we live in it literally just is it's the rat race. It's a grind. You can never, even if you make decent money in whatever your career or your job is, like it's that grind, it's that time that you give up. And then also the mental capacity that it takes up when you're not working, which, in a lot of places there's, higher requirements. You're connected all the time, all of those things. And, the physical demands that take time, literally take time off of your life
Yeah.
because you've, been in physical labor. So that balance is so difficult. Even, I work a corporate job. Even for me, like that balance is always an ongoing battle of
Yeah.
like, what's productive for me to do my job and what's almost like anxiety that is taking away from my other quality of life. And I don't have the answer, but I think it kind of creates that. And then you have this whole social media thing where everybody can go see everybody living this perfect, and I'm using air quotes, perfect life. But the reality is like you're getting a very curated timeline designed to
Yeah.
make you feel like this person's living the perfect life. And it's very damaging and it's hard and it makes it difficult for people, I think. And then the internet gives you this outlet to be angry without having to have the consequences of doing it in real life,
Yeah.
which would be damaged relationships, probably some public altercations and scenes in some cases, but it's just created like a very angry society, I think. And I encourage people all the time, especially when it comes to reality TV, where I feel like I'm the dad of the internet. And I remind people, I'm like, if you feel like you need to say something to someone on a reality TV show, I take a minute, take a breath, because this is actually about you. And you should look inside and realize you're looking in a mirror and then
Yeah.
figure out why this person that you don't even know has you so angry that you need to say something mean to them,
Yeah.
and it's just that inner work that you talk about.
Yeah, definitely. That goes back to that curiosity. Like, often, and it's not like I'm immune to it. Like,
Me
I'll be
neither.
in a room and somebody's like, I'm bothered by that person, and I'm just like, I take a minute and I'm like, okay, what's going on there? Like,
Mm,
what did that person do? Like, and then I try to look at the positives that they're doing, which I know is not going to be easy for most people because we live in a very divided climate. It's so much division, so much like this is who you are. Like if you're a Republican or you're a Christian, like that's who you are, and there's nothing
yeah.
else beyond that. And
Yeah.
and then you get put in these camps. But the thing is, like, and I've had to learn to grow this mentality, and is our diversity is our strength, and on so many levels, it's not just about color or
Yeah.
race. It's about the way your mind is set up. Like I believe that it's all on a deeper level. That's why I'm a huge advocate for mental health. We don't talk about it enough. It's not in the workplace enough. I understand that, but that doesn't mean that I agree with it and that I'm just going to
Mm,
sit there and do nothing about it.
yeah.
That's why I have my podcast, because like, yeah, I'm not making as much as I thought I would make when I first got
The
it,
harsh reality of podcasting, we all find
but
out.
but it's not why I'm doing it. I'm doing it because I love it. I'm doing it because, like, yeah, and maybe one day it will, but like that's not the main reason. Like, this isn't going to be where I'm making my bread and butter. This is, or on my podcast, it's going to be where I lead you to that, or I give you something, because like I said, I want you to have as many free resources as I can give away, because like it's about serving. For me, that's where I get my happiness, is knowing that I did everything I could to help whoever out and plant a seed. If you take the seed, great, awesome. I
Yeah.
love it. If you don't, it wasn't the time. Like, it wasn't
Yeah.
for you. I can't help everybody. I'm just one person. Like,
Yeah.
and that's why I'm more focused on, if like in the things that I do in my life, like, is this helping me towards my goal? Or is this something I can, that's not as important? what
Yeah.
what can I do right now that's going to help me towards the goal that I really want to do? Because like, we don't get this time back. You can't you
Yeah, we
can't
don't.
get the time back. You can add years on your life doing the right thing, but you got to figure out what those things are, and that costs money.
Yeah. Well, you're right. And my ethos is do the right thing. Like, it's on my LinkedIn profile. It's everywhere. Like, that is it's sitting here, and my
That's awesome.
affirmations that I read daily. Like, do the right thing. Like, and it can be the wrong thing in the long run, but do the right thing.
Yeah.
And I can tell you that, like, through all of my adversity that I've had, especially the last few years, like, I find peace in the fact that I think I'm doing what's right. And
Yeah.
what I think is important about what you said too is, you don't have to be everybody's cup of tea, but to your point on the goal, like, is this helping me towards my goal? I think that's important. And I did this evaluation with my podcast twice now, with my therapist encouraging me to like think
Nice.
about things and stuff. And I say to myself, I'm like, I don't do this to make money, because there's not a lot of money that I make doing this podcast. But every time I'm like, is the juice worth the squeeze for me? Is this helping me with my goal? And I'm like, well, it's helping me with like peace. Like, I am curious naturally, and I like to talk to people who want to have meaningful, real conversations. And
Yeah.
so this is an outlet for that changes my mindset from what I do with work every day, changes my mindset of running a nonprofit, and changes my mindset of sitting on the couch playing a video game or doing something, like that. And to me, there's value in that. And then every other time I'm like, maybe I'm going to take a break, which I've been taking a break now for like 3 weeks. So every time I'm like
Good.
taking a break or something, and I'm like, am I going to do this? I literally get a message from someone who's like, I just listened to this episode. This really helped me with X. Or, hey, I noticed you haven't had an episode the last couple of weeks. Are you coming back? And every time I'm kind of getting in this mindset where I'm like, maybe I need to take a break, like a long break instead of a couple of weeks, somebody
Yeah.
says something, and it reminds me, I'm like, I don't do this for money. I do this because I enjoy it. It brings me comfort. It's an outlet. And then I'm helping people, which is why I'm going to tie it back real quickly to your rapping. If you want to drop a rap track because you've written something that you're proud of, but it's not necessarily going to be something that's going to help you, grow your podcast, get coaching clients, maybe it's going to help someone, or maybe it's going to help someone else say, you know what, maybe I'll drop my rap track, and that can be worth it because it's filling your cup.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, I actually have dropped a couple of them. One's called like Worthless. It's on
Okay.
Spotify, and I think on YouTube too. Like, you can search Ronnie Real. So
Can
it's
you, let's get that link. I'll put it in the show notes. So if you're
yeah,
listening right now, it's in the
definitely.
show notes.
So yeah, if you want to check that out, and back to your point of like, sometimes, doing the right thing may not even feel like you're doing the right thing, but as long as you're good with God and like the people in your life, it really doesn't matter what anybody else thinks, because you're doing the right thing.
I 100% agree. I want to talk a little bit about your podcast. So don't mind me. I have ADHD. You
Yeah.
started this podcast. We've dabbled in it throughout this conversation, but what was the tipping point for you starting this podcast, and what's your vision for the show?
Yeah, I would say like the tipping point was, just figuring out, like I said earlier, like that I really wanted to talk about mental health, but then I wanted to like really niche it down because like I don't know, mental health is just so big, and
Yes.
you know there's aspects of it that I talk about, and you know I was like, yeah, I can talk about my ADHD and my experience in learning, and like kind of like a growth podcast in a way. So I talked about one of the first episodes that actually gets a lot of play is the fear episode, like coming out and talking about it and being open with it and the benefits that I you know I experienced in it, and like in a scientific way as well. So I always like to bring in a little bit of science, not too much to bore people, but like it's important because like the science explains things in a way that it's like, oh wow, I'm not just the only one
Mm-hmm.
out here, and there's a reason. Like science has a long way to go when it comes to like figuring out what ADHD really is on a deep emotional spiritual level, because they don't add those two last parts to it. Very few doctors do that. So you know, now I'm on a level of like exploring that on a deeper level with, you know, like I said, my addiction. Like I didn't really um want to talk about that in the beginning because the anonymity, and I didn't know
Mm-hmm.
if like, you know, being a coach that's an addict, like that might, you know, push some people away. You know, like I wanted, but it's like I said, it's not about getting everybody. It's about getting the right people. You know,
Yep.
and honestly, the more that I've been talking about it, the more I feel like we need to talk about addiction more on such a bigger level, because it's our children that are going through this. It's I have a personal stake in it. Like I understand like that need to want to be loved and not getting it when you were growing up, and always seeking it, not knowing where it came from, and the abuse that
And not knowing what
most
it feels
addicts,
like.
yeah, have gone through in their life, is something people need to understand, that you're not going up against drugs, you're going up against fellow human beings that have just been lost in the shuffle. And if like science and politics got together and understood that, we would be so much better than the system that you got right now. Yeah, I know it's making you lots of
Now,
money, but you
now
got a
science
lot
is
of problems
polarizing.
going on over here
Yeah,
that
I
you're
know.
gonna have to look at.
I mean, we're clearly at in this country, but really in the world. I think the WHO has even said this. Like, there's a mental health crisis going
Yes.
on right now of epic proportions, and it's across the board. And it is like, to your point, what do we get from the companies that cause a lot of the challenges we all face? Right?
Yeah.
Here's an app you can go
Well, they
on
have the
and find
problem
a
and the
therapist,
solution.
and
So
yeah, exactly. It's just, and it's like, this is where I get kind of frustrated. And I'm not trying to go on a tangent, but I'm going to go on a mini tangent. This is like what frustrates me about like Mental Health Awareness Day or Mental Health Month or Men's Mental Health Month and
yeah.
all Autism Awareness Month, ADHD Awareness Day, whatever. All of these things, it's like we have a day or we have a month and everybody talks about it, and then we move on to the next thing. And it's like
Yeah.
these things need to be not just talked about. Solutions need to be debated and implemented. We need to
Yeah.
test things that we can do as a society to help enable people who have mental health challenges or have a diagnosis. And you could probably tell, like, I think sometimes a diagnosis can just be a little bit damaging on its own.
Yeah.
It gives people an excuse. It gives people they don't know that the work starts there, like all of that stuff we've already talked about. And I think that we need to build a better system in society that is supportive of people who have all mental health challenges, but we also need to have a society that like doesn't almost enable people to have some of the challenges that they have: homelessness,
Yeah.
addiction, and a lot of these things. I know, like, it's your genetics, right? You're genetically predisposed to some of these things, but when we have a culture and a society that is, squeezing the life out of so many people, and we have no system in place to support them and stop them from falling into, a crisis,
Yeah.
we got to look at ourselves and do better.
Yeah. And it's really not that, it's not a lot of work. It's just it's going to be emotionally challenging for a lot of people. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I get that's hard, but it's like, Yeah, it needs to be addressed. These are these people, and like for me, it always comes back to me, and realizing like, remembering where I came from, because like look at where I've gone, where I've come. I was on the street too, so you don't
Mm-hmm.
know if you're looking at a homeless person that's just lost his way and needs to
Yep.
find his way home. And once he finds his way home, or she finds her way home, like what an impact they can make on the world, especially to those other ones that are out there too.
I agree. And homelessness is so close to me because, like I said, grew up working class, evicted, scary times at times. You've lived
Yes.
it, which is, I'm sure you have so many insights on that. But like, I look at,
Yeah.
you, and I look at the people in Chicago, which is where I'm located, and I'm just
Yeah.
like, these people are not. They're like treated like garbage. They're not like, people don't. I try to acknowledge them at the very least when I walk by someone,
Yeah.
just even a head nod or a how you doing or something,
Yeah.
because they're like invisible, and you just get in a city like Chicago, you get accustomed to seeing it, and then it just becomes like background.
Yeah.
And the reality is like, I think we're at like 750,000 homeless people in this country, the richest country in the history of the world, and we have homeless
Yes.
people, and we're just letting them be background. It's
I know.
awful.
It's just there's evidence of the problem right there. Like
Yeah.
that your system's not working, and yeah, not as many people are going to be as super rich. But it's weird about wealth is like wealth actually doesn't have a limit. Like you can create more wealth, like by creating new things and giving people
Yeah.
the ability to do those things. So
This is what I don't understand about the elite rich of the rich in this country and around the world is like, if you strip everything from everybody else, how are you going to keep making money? Because they're not going to
yeah.
have money to buy anything. Like you pump a little bit of money into the lower and the middle class, and what are they going to do? They're going to spend it on your
Yeah, who's
shit.
gonna run your factories? Who's gonna do all the things that you don't want to do?
Yeah,
All we're seeing is just give us a little more value for what we're doing for you, and time. Like that's really the most important thing is like appreciating, and showing up for somebody, and asking them how they're doing. Like what's going on today? I know you're not your normal self, because you can't know what their normal self is if you never talk to them
mm,
and never know what
yeah,
their name is. Like that's just so many levels of like why things, you might have um a high turnover in your company, or you just feel, yeah, there's a lot of issues that can be very easily fixed, with
I
just very
agree.
simple solutions. So
And no like, you don't need the politics of it all, because that just makes it polarizing and complicated. That's
yeah.
what's difficult. So at the beginning, I'll wrap up with this question here. Actually, I have two more questions, but
Oh
fierce
no.
kindness. I want to ask you, fierce kindness. You said you're an advocate of fierce kindness. What is fierce kindness to you? Although I feel like we've gotten that throughout the show, but if you had to summarize it, what is fierce kindness, and what does it mean to you?
Yeah, it's like, you have this myth that being nice is you're gonna get walked over, or kindness is weakness, which is, it's there's a difference between fierce kindness and being nice. Nice is just allowing people to walk all over you, people pleasing really. And people
Mm-hmm.
pleasing is dishonest. It's manipulative. It's not, it's doing something because you're expecting something in return. Fierce kindness, on the other hand, is just doing something nice because it's the right thing. And if they do something back, great. If not, I just did it because like I needed to do it for you. It's also the ability to be able to say no, like, or stand up for how you feel, because if they continue to cross those boundaries, like it's not going to show, like it's not going to be a good situation for either one of you, and you want to respect that relationship by opening up about how you feel and having those difficult conversations. That takes courage. Kindness is, it's there's even science behind it, like that you live a longer life, you get better feelings, it multiplies. Like a small act of kindness can literally affect people that you don't even know. So it's about fostering that in people and just having that, like looking at people as fellow human beings and not like, yeah, they did something wrong, but not pointing it out to everybody and just trying to like, over Facebook or whatever and just calling it out and saying, maybe call it out, but be like, look, I understand where you're coming from, but here's some other things that
Here's
you
a new
can look at.
perspective. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I don't agree with what you're saying completely. I do part of it, but maybe open your mind to this, instead of just being like, you're wrong. Like, how could you say that on this post? This is a kind post. Like, you're not being
People on
kind.
the
Like,
internet, people on the internet will hate Santa Claus and try to cancel
yeah.
him. Like
And those people need
uh,
it the most.
yeah,
Those people really
exactly.
do. And that's really where the fierce kindness is like seeing the trauma that other people are, they're crying out for help. They may not take the kindness right now, but like I said, it's about planting those seeds and showing up and being like, because I've always looked up to people that are like, they get hit with some devastating news, or somebody just disrespects them, and you're expecting them to retaliate, and they just humbly say, and move on, and like they take it in stride. um it's always you always, and you want
It's
to
like the
be like
subtle
that,
art
but
of not
nobody has
giving
the
a fuck.
strength.
Yeah. It's like the book, The
In a
Subtle Art
way,
of Not Giving a
you're just
Fuck.
like, I don't want to have an argument here. Like, it's not. It's.
Yeah.
I know they're not going to listen, and I don't want to put myself in that position. So
Yeah. Yeah, I
it's
agree with you. And
powerful.
I try. Yeah, I think you said that so well. There's part of that I really probably needed to hear, because even last week I was with my therapist, and I've been in a bit of a rough patch lately, we'll just say. And one of the things
Yeah.
that she said to me to think about before next week is think about how much of my disappointment is because I have high expectations of other people, and what it could look
Yeah.
like if I didn't have expectations of other people, but only had expectations of myself.
Yeah.
And
It's great.
it's like, yeah, I know. I'm like, fuck. It's like, I know that, but sometimes you need to hear it. Or like you said, like, kindness is doing something without expecting something in return.
Yeah,
And I
because
think
it's
that's
manipulation.
important.
It's
Yeah.
not kindness. It's not
Yeah.
kindness anymore. It's something
No.
else.
Yeah.
But it
And
doesn't mean
I
that it can't become kindness. It's just
right.
we got to understand the difference, because
Yeah.
like if you're thinking about it from that other end, it kindness seems impossible. Some kindness seems like it's just going to be taking and taking and taking,
Yeah.
and that version of it is. But
Yeah.
when you set those boundaries and you know when to show up, and you see people with hope, but you give yourself, they understand. Like, people just, they're not mind readers. They need to know
Mm-mm.
where the boundaries are, and sometimes you got to tell them in a
Yeah.
nice way.
And
Sometimes
enforce them.
it may not look that way, but it's firm. You're holding on to, and maybe in the beginning, it's going to look bad, but you got to understand. You got, like, for me, I had to make mistakes in these conversations to understand how to get better at having better conversations. So if I never took that risk to make a mistake and have conversations that I've never had before with people that I was scared to have those conversations with, like, I would have never been able to be like, hey, maybe I could have done this here. But I'm also looking at it like, hey, like, wow, you were brave there. Like, you that took a lot of courage to stand there and even to make those mistakes.
Yeah. Yeah. I couldn't agree more. I appreciate you sharing that.
I appreciate
and
it.
I appreciate you sharing everything that you shared today. And, to wrap up here before I give you a chance to ask me anything, kind of tie this all in a bow. You work with men over 40 trying to learn how to manage life with an ADHD diagnosis or a potential. So to those folks, and honestly, like, my audience is mostly women, but to anyone will say who's been diagnosed or suspects they might be diagnosed or have ADHD, what's that first step of advice that you would give them?
Yeah, I would just say if you think you got ADHD, there's probably a good chance that you do. And definitely, it depends on how old you are. Like I would say if you're 30 and over, you might want to go to your primary care, but a lot of them aren't equipped to make that diagnosis, or they're not even trained to make that diagnosis. They just don't connect the two. And they, a lot, it's still on that phase where ADHD is, doesn't show up. It's only a childhood thing, which is not a thing. Like you can get better with it. You can manage it. Look into, maybe getting an ADHD coach or a therapist. I would definitely go with a therapist or a psychologist, going down that route. And you don't necessarily need a diagnosis. Like I never got one. I asked my therapist if I needed one, and he said that honestly, diagnosis, in his opinion, he feels that they are more trouble than they're worth, because a lot of them don't do it in the right way. And sometimes you can get diagnosed for something else that you don't have. Like PTSD in children can look like ADHD. So if you're getting, and those are two different treatments and they don't work together. So it's like you could end up getting worse through a diagnosis. So, it's unfortunately going to be a little bit of trial and error. Like I was fortunate to find my therapist right away, but I've had a history of therapy most of my life, so I know a good therapist. But you also have to come into it with like an open mind, as open, at least do some of what they're suggesting you to do in the beginning, and if see if it works. If it doesn't work, that it wasn't you, it was what they're doing, and then maybe you have to look into another, but give yourself the permission to explore this, because it's so worth it. Like it is not an issue. It can become a strength. I feel like we are better equipped than most people, not that we're better people, but like when it comes to like living our dreams and feeling the feelings, we have more feelings, we have a more capacity to be creative. There's so many strengths. So getting that diagnosis or finding that help is super important.
I love that. I think that's the best advice you could possibly give. Before we head out, I give my guests a chance to ask me anything. So, Ron, is there anything you want to ask me?
I'll give it back to you. What inspired you to start Eyes Wide Open, and what's the most unexpected thing you've learned from hosting it?
My gosh, that's a good question. So I started it for a lot of the reasons that we talked about earlier today. I'd actually wanted to start a podcast since like 2012. Initially, I wanted to start a fantasy football one. And then when I started, realizing that I was going to have a bit of a following and all of this stuff, and I just wanted to talk about stuff that I think is important. The purpose of the show is do the work so you can show up in the world with your eyes wide open, which is a little bit of play on words, since I was on the show Love is Blind, and that didn't work out so well for me. So I think that, ultimately I wanted to have conversations with people, and then eventually with myself in some of the solo episodes, that have expertise and experiences in life that might be unique, but would also be relatable to someone out there. And so as I've mentioned, I've had all sorts of different guests, from mental health experts. I like to talk a lot about holistic wellness, which has been a very important part of my, managing my mental health. And, I like to talk about, news and politics and culture and all of that stuff. So to me, it was an opportunity to have, insightful, real conversations with people who have expertise or experiences that are relevant to whatever's top of mind at me in the moment, And then I thought that would be beneficial for people who are curious or want to be curious or want to learn more about how to live, a more fulfilling, knowledgeable life. And then the other question was, man, I've learned so much on this show. I think, and I think what has been really impactful for me is the few times I've had neuroscientists on, because this show is very much like a stream of thought for me. Like, what am I thinking about in the moment? What's happening in the moment that piques my curiosity? And then I find someone to talk about that. And so when I first started learning about neuroscience a few years ago, and I had a neuroscientist on, and I learned about, the 4 main brain chemicals: dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, and endorphins. And so just learning about those and what causes your brain to produce them, what it means to have a shortage or to have poor baselines, stuff like that. And then even maybe 2 months ago now, I had another neuroscientist on, and we talked about screen addiction, the porn addiction epidemic, all of that. Like, that stuff is so fascinating to me because I don't really know a lot about it. And to have, a neuroscientist explain to me what's happening in your brain when you doom scroll and why it's bad and the long-term effects of it, and that it shrinks your brain and all of these things that are just like mind-blowing to me. And I hope other people find, the same kind of value in them, that in these episodes that helps you want to like change a behavior or something.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. And I thought it was like Eyes Wide Shut,
Well, it's a little, it is a little bit of a play on that as well. It's supposed to be something that makes you kind of think twice about it.
Not that, a lot of people may know what we're talking about. Yeah. It's like one of those forgotten movies.
Yeah, it's a true classic. So cool. Well, I want to thank you again for joining today, giving me your time. I know we're a little bit over time, so thanks for the extra time. And tell everyone where they can find you, and we'll put those links and your rap link for what was it called again? The track?
It's called Worthless. There's like a couple on Water and Worthless.
Cool.
Yeah.
So where can people find you?
Yeah. I just want to say thank you. I had so much fun on here too. I appreciate your questions and that we went down that rabbit hole of raps. If you'd like to continue this journey, I invite you into my world through my podcast. Don't mind me. I just have ADHD. It's where I explore not just the struggles, but the hidden strengths and untapped potential that come with a different kind of brain in the workplace. And for those of you who appreciate powerful tools, I've curated a self-discovery journal. It's the e-version. It's a complimentary resource that I'm gifting to your audience. You can access that at youradhdguy.com. It's not just a journal, but a mirror, a way to clarify your vision, reset your compass, and reconnect with those you truly are, with you, who you truly are.
I love that. Thanks again, Ron, for coming on today. We'll have to do this again sometime. I feel like we have a lot more we could explore.
Yeah, definitely. Or, I could have you on my show.
I'd love to do that. Let's make that happen. Thank you for joining us on this week's episode of Eyes Wide Open. If you enjoy the show, the best way to support us is by sharing or dropping a review. For more information and content, check out engagewithnick.com or find me on Instagram at nthompson513. Don't go through life blind. Do the work so you can show up in the world with your eyes wide open.